For the most part, nobody really knows when a driver's last career win will come. Sometimes it comes in a triumphantly fitting way, like Jeff Gordon winning one of his best tracks to make the Final Four in 2015. But sometimes it's just Kevin Harvick winning at Richmond before he had even announced his retirement. But some final career wins are so insane that they can only be described as an act of God. And in this video, I'm going to be going over just a few of the craziest ones. Final wins that came under circumstances that nobody could have expected. Let's begin with the 2003 Ford 400 at Homestead. The late stage of the race was a battle between former champions Bill Elliott and Bobby Labonte. Elliott, fittingly enough, had just unknowingly scored the final win of his career the previous week at Rockingham. But he was looking for back-to-back wins here to close out his final full-time season of racing. A feat that we would probably still be talking about today if he pulled it off. If being the keyword. With the race looking all but locked up with close to a 1 second lead with 1 lap to go, Elliott would unexpectedly cut a tire in turn 2.
You need tires, you idiot!
Handing the lead to Bobby Labonte, who would cruise to victory from there. The leader cutting a tire in the last lap of a race is already an extremely rare phenomenon as is, but to have it happen to a driver who had just scored their last career win and hand another driver their last career win in the process? Man, something like that is harder to script than Taylor Swift being at the Super Bowl, which I guess isn't all that hard to script. You know, it's kind of hard to call a rain-shortened final win crazy considering, well, it's rain-shortened. In fact, many notable drivers have had final career wins come to them in the rain. Clint Bowyer, Carl Edwards. But if one would qualify for this list, it would have to be Dale Jr.'s final career win at Phoenix in 2015. The closing stage of the race looked like your average Phoenix race, with Kevin Harvick making it look like an easy Sunday drive. But in a top 10 stacked with the remaining 8 playoff drivers, the eliminated Dale Jr. notably ran in the 3rd position. Surprisingly, Dale Jr. opted to pit with the leaders instead of stretching his fuel mileage with nothing to lose. But when the caution flew at lap 196, things worked out in his favor, as Jr. had managed to jump both Harvick and Logano on pit lane. Under the caution, the remaining leaders hit pit road, handing the lead to Dale Jr. But the race would never restart as an incredibly rare rainstorm hit the Phoenix desert, giving Dale Jr. the 26th and final win of his career. Similar to Elliott versus Labonte though, this was almost another legend's final career win, Jeff Gordon. Gordon actually inherited the lead when the final caution flew, but he along with the rest of the top 5 decided to pit just before the rain hit. This was also Jeff's final ride in the Pepsi car, which would have been an amazing send-off for that sponsor. But speaking as a biased Jeff Gordon fan, I'm kinda glad that this wasn't his last career win. Martinsville was a lot more fitting. I mean, obviously I wish Homestead was his last career win, but I'll take what I got. Still, who could have foreseen a rainy race in the desert being the last win of Dale Jr.'s career? And just like in 2014 when he won at Martinsville after getting eliminated, if Dale Jr. had just survived the round of 12, he could have made the championship 4 alongside Jeff Gordon. But still, after decades of racing against each other, it's wild that the last win scored by Gordon or an Earnhardt came just within a few weeks of each other. One of the only wilder last career wins though, of course, belongs to his father. We've all heard the legend by now, but let me just remind you in case you haven't. With only 4 laps to go in the 2000 Fall Talladega race, Dale Earnhardt made a legendary rally, driving his way from 18th to 1st. And this isn't your wild and crazy Gen 6 slingshotting all over the place superspeedway package. This was the Gen 4 superspeedway package, which was considered much more methodical and less chaotic. Gaining nearly 20 positions in only a handful of laps was next to unheard of at that time. If anyone didn't believe that Dale Earnhardt could see the air, then he had convinced them that day. Not just claiming one of the greatest last career wins, but cementing himself as the undisputed GOAT of superspeedway racing in the process. On top of that, this was Earnhardt's only time winning the Winston No Bull $1 million bonus. For those unfamiliar, it worked very similar to the current day Dash for Cash in the Xfinity series, where the top 5 finishers of the previous Crown Jewel race can win a $1 million bonus by winning the next Crown Jewel race. I know Talladega isn't normally considered a crown jewel, but since the race was sponsored by Winston, it was artificially made into one for a few years. Hey, real quick, I'd just like to say that if you're a big NASCAR diecast collector like myself, then be sure to check out the link below to get your podcast party bus / daily Downforce diecast from last year's Darlington Spring Race. And using the special code BUS15, you can get this baby for $15 off, so don't wait. So while Dale Sr. scoring his last win at Talladega is incredibly fitting for a talented plate racer, or Jeff Gordon getting his last win at his best track of Martinsville is very fitting, I don't think it's possible to find a final career win any more fitting than Tony Stewart's. Unfortunately, Tony Stewart's final few seasons were a monumental struggle. Due to personal circumstances and numerous injuries, Stewart was hardly ever in contention for victories in the twilight of his career. But if there was one type of racetrack where Stewart was always competitive, it was the road courses. For much of his career, Stewart was second only to Jeff Gordon on road courses. But with Gordon retiring in 2015, this left Stewart as the lone road course ace for his final season. But in the closing laps of the 2016 Sonoma race, NASCAR fans slowly felt all their hopes and dreams die away as the dreaded Denny Hamlin hunted down and ultimately passed Tony Stewart. Apologies to any Denny Hamlin fans watching. As Hamlin drove away in the S's, it looked like Tony's last shot at a win was going away with him. But Hamlin would inexplicably miss the final hairpin turn while Tony Stewart pulled what can only be described as the most aggressive Tony Stewart move possible. He didn't just put Hamlin in the wall, he all but checked Hamlin into a medical facility. But you know what? Putting kids in their place is what Tony Stewart is known and loved for. And there's something oddly satisfying about this being the way he scored his last career win. Few wins are as true to smoke as this one. Okay, so far we've only discussed final wins in the Cup Series, and who can really blame me, that's what most people remember. But there is one from the lower series that I would like to highlight. Michael Waltrip's final Busch Series career win came at Nashville in 2004 in spectacular fashion. When with 3 laps to go, all 4 of the leaders, including Kyle Busch, Clint Bowyer, Robbie Gordon, and Johnny Benson, would all wreck each other in turn 2. Waltrip, who was running a distant 5th, passed all of them cleanly to take a caution flag which ended the race, scoring him his 11th and final Busch Series victory. And like Tony Stewart, this might be the most Michael Waltrip way possible to win a race. It's perfect. One driver whose final career win I think is severely underrated though is Kasey Kahne's. Kasey Kahne was an interesting case of a driver. At the teams of Evernham, Richard Petty, and Red Bull, he far outran what his equipment was capable of. And when he was finally signed to drive for Hendrick Motorsports, many anticipated that Kahne would be NASCAR's next big multi-time champion. But what they didn't know was that black cats encounter bad luck when a Kasey Kahne crosses their path. Between horrid luck, numerous crew chiefs, and a lack of speed, the stars never aligned for Kahne at Hendrick. And in 2017, his last year driving for the team, he found himself in the middle of a career-high 102 race winless streak. In an uncharacteristically chaotic Brickyard 400, Kahne survived an absolute wreckfest to make it to the finish of the race. This was also the infamous race where Jimmy Johnson would send it 3 wide while his engine was blowing up trying to claim the win. We didn't know it at the time, but had this pass worked, there's a chance that this would have been Jimmy Johnson's last career win. After countless late race restarts, Kahne would barely edge Brad Keselowski to the overtime line as the field wrecked behind them, finally ending the race. After coming close so many times, Kahne would finally win the Brickyard and check another elusive crown jewel off his list. Definitely not a bad way to go out. But who has the craziest last career win of all time? Well, it sounds cliche, but could it really be anybody other than King Richard? As we've documented on this channel before, Richard Petty struggled mightily for the better part of the last decade of his career, to the point where many believed that he would never reach win number 200. In fact, his 198th win at Charlotte was the subject of great controversy in 1983, as his car was found to be illegal in pretty much every possible way a car could be illegal. Among many infractions, his engine was well over the 358 cubic inches limit, clocking in at a massive 382. Junior Johnson owned the car that had finished in second place and had already packed up and gone home by the time Petty's inspection was finished. So NASCAR made the tough decision to award Petty the victory instead of awarding it to second per the rulebook. To this day, many believe that the real reason NASCAR allowed Petty to keep the win was because it was beginning to look unlikely that Petty would reach 200 victories. But him doing so would be a great storyline for the sport. Lucky for NASCAR, their efforts weren't in vain, as Petty would finally score his 200th victory the following year at Daytona's Firecracker 400, with none other than President Ronald Reagan in attendance, a huge landmark event in NASCAR history. Exterior storylines aside, the win itself is equally crazy. With a caution coming out late in the race, Petty and Yarborough knew that whoever reached the caution flag first would be declared the winner. Yarborough would dive bomb underneath Petty in turn 3, only for Petty to get even with him out of 4. From there, it was a drag race to the finish line, and Petty would score win number 200 in dramatic fashion. It's an ending that's almost too good to be true. And that's because it was. Because the next 8 years would be nothing but pain and endless misery for Petty Enterprises. But hey, at the very least, the King's final career win is as perfect as they come. On NASCAR's biggest stage, with a photo finish 200 wins even, and eating fried chicken with the President of the United States. An image so American it should be taped to the bottom of the Constitution. So those are just a few of NASCAR's craziest last career wins. Let me know if there are any others you can think of in the comments down below. But don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and check out dailydownforce.com for more awesome NASCAR content.